I'm very proud of, and I'm very happy to introduce our next speaker, especially because it's, I would say, a legend within the investment community. He's someone that has been working in investment for many, many years. Experience coming out of Lehman Brothers, and after that, basically, he's right now the GP, the general partner of Bullhound, and his co-founder since 1999. Let me repeat that. Like being in venture capital since 1999, that in itself, it's wow, okay? And apart from that, he's been involved in many, many deals in many different companies in the tech world. He's an expert in tech, has a lot of experience in M&A and in capital transactions. And I'm pretty sure that everyone here has at least heard of some of the companies they've invested or co-leaded in some of their investments. So things like CLX, Delivery Hero, King.com, everyone? Okay, Candy Crush, guys, Candy Crush, raise your hand. Come on, don't be shy, there we go. You are those annoying guys on the metro. Klarna from Sweden, obviously he's actually from Sweden, I believe. So Klarna from Sweden, Shazam, everyone? And obviously Spotify, among many, many others. So please big an incredible applause to our next speaker, Per Johnson, talking about trends and transactions in Europe, getting the deal done. Per Roman, not Johnson. Per Roman, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love this since '99. I forgot the crutch. Old now. Well, anyhow, I think it was a good segue to go from the startup price to what I'm going to talk about, because this is about when you get a bit further along the road. I can't see my slides, though. Is that off, or can you turn it on? No? Okay, skip it. It's fine. So what is GP Bullhound? We're the leading technology investment bank in Europe. So we do M&A and capital markets transactions, and we also do principal investments. So we started this business 17 years ago now, because we were four young guys that really saw a huge opportunity in Europe around internet and technology, but felt that the landscape that we were operating in Europe lacked a lot of the core puzzle pieces that was evident in Silicon Valley. So while there were great entrepreneurs and great technology ideas, and I think particularly some very, very skilled engineers in Europe, we didn't really have a venture capital industry, we didn't have growth capital, we didn't have private equity funds that focused on technology. We didn't have deal lawyers that understood technology deals. We didn't have investment bankers that were focused, so on and so forth. And most of all, people didn't speak to each other. So, I mean, back in '99, an event like this could never take place because people sat in their respective countries and regions and isolated themselves. So we wanted to bring that kind of Silicon Valley flair to Europe, and been working on it since. And I think we expressed that in successful transactions, but of course, in between, we do a lot of other things. Like research, events. We get loads of awards for this. Thank you. And we keep on opening up offices in Europe. And this is the most important thing, because I think what we've learned is why we started the business in London and then San Francisco to be where the capital and technology is. It was really when we started to also set up local teams in the various cities and countries of Europe that it became truly powerful. Because a lot of times when an entrepreneur needs advice around what to do next. Should I raise more capital? Should I take this offer that I have in my hand from a Google or a Microsoft? It's not a formal setting. What you want is to meet somebody over a cup of coffee and have a discreet discussion about it. And that's what we try to do. But I'm not going to talk anymore about us. I'm going to talk about the markets. Now I even have slides. Now I'm happy also. So this is a very powerful slide. I mean, look at this very carefully. So since 2013, your general stocks have done about 20%, which actually means it's been a good stock market environment in general. But NASDAQ has done 89% in the same area. I mean, that's the very broadest definition of technology, even includes a good bunch of non-tech businesses. And if you then realize what a monopolistic industry tech and internet is by nature, and you take the FAANG companies of Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, you can see that their outperformance, even though they were highly valued businesses at the start of this measurement period, is quite dramatic, which just shows in our industry that if there's, as much as we talk about startup activity, what really is happening is that the strong are getting stronger and truly dominating the world today, not just our industry, but the world at large. And if you look at Europe, you will see a more modest version, but a very clear similar pattern. So the orange here represents technology at a massive outperformance to stocks in general. But of course, as typical for our industry, not at the levels of excitement that we see in the US. And if we then look at the global M&A market, the picture is somewhat different. So you can see that 2015 was an absolute whopper of a year, and actually an unprecedented year since the 90s. And this year looks a lot more muted, but I can tell you that the European picture is a lot brighter, and we feel that very clearly. I think the amount of transaction activity in our firm in all the offices across Europe right now has never been stronger, and I think that's a really good weather vane for not the stats you see now, but the stats that you will see in 6 months' time. So my sense is that 2016 will end up being quite close to 2015, and that we're going to come into a very strong 17. I think another way to look at this is to look at it geographically. Where does the exits take place in Europe? I mean, where does innovation happen that go all the way to the type of quality that requires a buyer to buy the business off the market? And what you can see here is that there is a dramatic weighting towards UK startups and UK growth companies. I think clearly lower culture barriers towards US buyers and no language barrier definitely makes a difference. Also the fact that UK and London in particular is very well capitalized is hugely advantageous to you entrepreneurs, because you can only grow as fast as the fuel you get through capital. And then we see Germany as a distant second, followed very closely by France. I think both of these countries are amazing innovation engines at the moment. And if I were to forecast 3 years into the future, I think they will be much closer to the UK numbers. And then after that, we have the Nordic region, dominated by Sweden. And then we have Spain and Netherlands and Russia just under that. And actually, I'm very happy for Spain, because I think while this still is distant to France, and I don't think it needs to be, it's definitely a huge improvement from 3 or 4 years ago. So I mean, something is really happening here, and I think I see that on a daily basis. And if we then look at the step before you exit, taking rounds of capital, you see a slightly different picture. So it's still an overweight on UK, but not nearly as dominant. So I tell you that's the forward-telling answer. And you see, again, very good activity from Spain. So if that holds, I think we'll see more exits here soon. Talking about Spain in particular, I mean, hotel beds, I mean, a fantastic deal. Privali, a deal we knew very much about, inside out. TicketBiz that eBay bought, another great exit. Vincio. And we see companies now like Wallapop and Jobs and Talent and many others that look like they will be very significant businesses and ultimately exits. So you can see that our forecast for 2016 is, in a down year, this country is up. And on the placement side, and I get most excited here because for our principal investment business, this is great, and we're lucky to be a small investor in Jobs and Talent. It's our first investment in Spain, and I'm very, very impressed by Juan and the team that he's built there. We are also very closely involved with both Wallapop and Cabify. I can't tell too much about that, but again, I think those are two businesses that are tremendously impressive. And as much as Corner Job and Jobs and Talent are actually somewhat competitors, I take my hat off to Corner Job as well. It's a beautiful business. And we'll see again a good shot here at an up year once this is closed out, and I have a good deal of insight into that future data. So I thought with that, I'll talk a little bit about what we call unicorns, so businesses that are valued on paper or realized at more than $1 billion and that were founded 2000 or later. So we've cut out SAPs and Ericssons and Telefonicas and focus on this generation of entrepreneurs. And it's quite astounding. I mean, we have 47 companies in Europe who have valuations, many of them well in excess of $1 billion, and that are on average, only 5-10 years old. We've been more successful in consumer than in enterprise. So that's in contrast to the US market. And I hope that will change over time, because I think much of the really fundamental technology that we can be part of creating is on the enterprise side. And I also think that as a consumer, we're a bit sated now with all the great apps and mobile phones that we have, whereas I think on the enterprise side, there's a lot of innovation room to be had. It's obviously great to be an investor if you find these businesses. The average return on having invested in a unicorn is 55 times the money, which means that you can for sure raise another fund and also live a good lifestyle. We have 10 new unicorns that came into the report in this last 12 months period, and 3 that fell out. So we're definitely still in an accelerating environment. But before we talk about who they are, I want to also pause a bit and just recognize for you or entrepreneurs in the room. How many are entrepreneurs in the room? Raise a hand. How many run a business here? Yeah, I mean, don't get depressed if your company is not yet worth $1 billion. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it's like when you read it in the news, it seems like these things happen very, very fast. But typically, it takes a long time to build a successful, sustainable business. So we ran some data on that. Jacob helped me here. And if you look at Symantec and Oracle and Microsoft, I mean, it took them 10 years to just get to $50 million of revenue. I mean, that's not fast. And you see, well, some have been faster, like Amazon, but that's also because revenue there is a pass-through of product. So, profit they're still not achieving. So be patient, let it take the time it takes, don't give up, and don't have your VCs give up on you either. Squeeze them for more capital so you can push on. You can also see that it differs between sectors. So software that I burn most passionately about also takes longer to build because you have a slower selling cycle and a more challenging R&D development environment. Whereas e-com and social media grow faster, but also I would argue do typically not have as sustainable barriers to entry. And if we look at Europe, you see the picture is very similar. I mean, Business Objects, I think the first investment I made was very fast to grow, but is the rare exception. And even Just Eat, for instance, which people consider a very recent success, took a large number of years to become a meaningful business. Now, the survival of the fittest. So which are the greatest unicorns in Europe? Well, the greatest unicorn of all is Supercell. Now when Tencent actually bought out the whole business. So it's the first time in Europe we have a unicorn that gets exited at more than $10 billion. So I think my colleagues in London want to call that decacorns, but I think that's just too many buzzwords. So we'll stick with this. One horn is enough. Then I'm proud, of course, as a Swede, that Spotify and Skype is number 2 and 3. So I think Nordic people are obviously very good at really continuing, even when you've built quite a lot of value. And while we as a business live very healthily off selling companies for 100 or 200 or 300 million dollars, I love when I manage to convince entrepreneurs to not hire us to sell, but to push on instead, because there is so much greatness and so hard to get to 100 or 200 million dollars of value. It's very easy at that stage to underestimate what you have, and that you now are really poised to build a true global leader. If we then look at geographic spread, you can see that in forms of value, UK is again the most successful, followed by little Sweden, and then Germany, and then Finland, who with 2 companies only get to 4th place in forms of value creation, which is quite astounding. I think out of Russia, we're going to see a lot more coming, but it's going to take a bit of time because they, as we all know, are in a politically challenging climate at the moment. I listened to BlaBlaCar earlier here today. They're good friends of ours. I think that's a fantastic success story. I mean, it's a French company, but they're successful here as well. But I call on you, whatever role you play in the Spanish ecosystem, we've got to get a logo onto this graph, Spanish logo. And I think it could be maybe one of these. I don't know which one. What do you think? What do you think over there? Yeah, which is going to be the first billion-dollar company out of Spain? That's what I think too. Great. Also, Apex is a great owner, and it's great for Spain that we have Apex investing in Spanish internet. So, which sectors can you build a billion-dollar business in? I think that's a good thing to think about. I mean, I sometimes meet entrepreneurs who start a business because they have a day-to-day issue. You know, my coat hangers don't hang straight enough, or my collars get wrinkled when I travel, and they come up with a better bag. But they maybe don't spend enough time thinking, does that build you a billion-dollar business? Well, I think you can build a billion-dollar business in many areas of e-commerce. And e-commerce today, as you know, is transitioning to much more asset-light and marketplace-like models. I think this is particularly an area where I see a lot of competence here in Spain. And also you have a very large home market in Spain itself and indirectly in LATAM. So very, very well positioned for e-commerce. I would say much better positioned, for instance, than the Nordic countries. Software, I think another hot area. I don't know if you all know CartoDB. They're Madrid-based. So I think they're a fabulous software company. It's very advanced graphing software. And they just show there's a lot of talent here that can go after these opportunities. Marketplaces we talked about. FinTech is a huge game changer at the moment. Gaming, and I think gaming for Spain is particularly the success of Social Point. It hasn't exited yet, but it will, and it will at, I think, quite significant valuations. And then to round off, these are the trends that we get as a firm really passionate about. I mean, we are in 7 locations in Europe and US, and we're opening up in Hong Kong, in Asia in January. And what's pretty neat with that is every Monday afternoon and evening, we have a global video conference call, and we all talk about what we're seeing and picking up in the various markets. And it helps build us a little bit of a map of change that seems to really start to make a difference and create meaningful opportunities. And my favorite area is enterprise SaaS, so enterprise software. I think in a way, I'm a quite active user of apps like Facebook and LinkedIn. You probably are too. My son has got me onto the Snapchat bandwagon, and I actually find it quite hilarious. It's very fun to use, very easy. But when I come to work, I mean, not only do I have to meet my colleagues bent over Excel, but I have to open up PowerPoint and Outlook. And it looks exactly the same as when I started the business in '99. If anything, it actually looks a bit worse because they moved around the menus in a mysterious fashion. So it just tells me it's a huge, huge opportunity in enterprise. And if you then go into vertical industries, so whether it's automotive or whether it's transport or delivery or home repairs, the whole building industry, I mean, they basically have no technology. They may still have a rugged Motorola telephone at the construction site. Makes no sense. Huge opportunities there. FinTech is a beautiful sector to go after. It's very large, I mean, because it has many completely separate areas from payments to Bitcoin. But what's good with this industry is it's an industry that's easy to like because the existing giants are quite unlikable companies. I mean, it's very hard to wake up in the morning and feel a love for Santander or Goldman Sachs. I mean, shit businesses that have charged us too many fees for too little service throughout our whole lives. So we should disrupt that industry. It's good disruption. It's healthy disruption. Then the sharing economy. I think people talk a lot about this, and it's happening, of course, on every level. I think only a Frenchman could have come up with BlaBlaCar because I think it's just a new form of dating, and there's nothing wrong in that. The price that was delivered here earlier today is definitely in the sharing economy space, and I think we're just at the beginning of that. And as somebody said to me, it's re-engineering of capitalism. I think maybe it's a strong word, but it's definitely fundamentally changing the value chain to the benefit of consumers. And it should be a great opportunity here in Spain, again, given the size of the market and so forth. And I get very excited about is virtual reality and augmented reality. I think this has been lumped together, but I think that is an exciting industry. We've done a number of transactions in this space. The two ones that have been announced is 13th Lab and that I sold to Facebook, and Scene that we sold to Snapchat, but we have several others. And then the biggest trend long term, in my view, is artificial intelligence. I mean, I think if we first had the wave of internet, followed by the wave of the mobile internet and the liberation of the App Store that fundamentally changed distribution channels. I mean, how many in the room are old enough to have had a phone with a walled garden store where you could potentially buy a game? Raise a hand. One. Only one person? No, come on, gotta be more than that. Your kids? Anyhow, it sucked. You remember how much it sucked? I mean, you had to click 7, 8 times to then pay too much for a crap game that took too long to download. So thanks to Steve Jobs for turning that into a marketplace and disintermediating that. And all the gamers in the world, I think, have really benefited. Many others too. But moving forward, I think the next step is to how do we shift the interaction that we do today with the phone, because it's not cool. I mean, it's not so much fun today, because wherever you go, people are just like, yeah, I'm kind of listening to you, but I'm here. I'm kind of listening, but I'm here. I'm kind of listening, but I'm here. And I think we're starting to recognize that in the industry. So we need now to up the game around the man-machine interface. I mean, how do we communicate with the device? And what artificial intelligence can do for us is evolve that in many different areas. In voice communication, in just automatically serving up what we're looking for, so we reduce the amount of time it takes to interact with the device. We can change the way we interact with the device. I think it's a huge area of innovation. It's going to take a long time to come, but I think the brave should go after it. And finally, I talked about marketplaces. It's obvious that this is very valuable, but it's not obvious how valuable it is. Because, let's check it in the room. How many of you have sold an item on something like a segunda mano in your life? See, so you're still a very nascent market when it comes to marketplace. If I would ask the same question in Sweden, 100% of the audience would raise their hand. Because once you get used to it, it's like Spotify. Once you realize that it's better to have access to all music all the time than some music some of the time, you never go back. You don't want to own an album again. And I think it is the same with the marketplace. First time you do sell something, an old TV set on the marketplace, and see that kid coming with a big smile because he gets a good deal, you're never again going to throw something away. You just won't. You're like, it's crazy. Why would I throw stuff away when I can sell it for €1 and make somebody happy, or sell it for €1,000 and make myself happy? I mean, depending on your outlook on life. It's huge, huge. And the lifetime value, I promise you, will prove to be the lifetime of people. You will sell on these places till you go into the ground. So I think with that, I want to wrap up and just say, I think we have a very, very bright future ahead of us in technology. The financial markets are always volatile. They're run by volatile people, so the consequence is clear. But it doesn't matter, because innovation itself doesn't stop, doesn't change. You just got to push on. And it doesn't matter whether you run your business in Spain or London or Silicon Valley or Hong Kong. You can succeed anywhere on the planet building a great company. Thanks.